welcome to this video. Make sure that your application is running in the background because we now go ahead into our client app. So right click on the client app folder and then open in terminal. And now we will again update our client-side code because we have for sure adjusted our RESTful API, or we created a new endpoint and a new controller, right? So we have to update our Angular client-side code. So simply run npx ng -openapi -gen. You can see that we now have generation finished with 4 modules and 2 services. You can also see here wrote new passenger DTO and passenger service, right? So everything seems to be fine. Okay, now it's time to switch back into our HTML form, register passenger. There we go, just a second, here we have it, register passenger, right? This is where we just created that form where we have that login button, and this login button that we have here, that one will call a register function or register method, which we don't have right now, but which we will create exactly in that moment. So open up client app folder, go up to source, go to app, go to register passenger and go to register passenger component.typescript. So for sure we go now to that TypeScript file, to the component itself. You can see the template URL is exactly this one. So make sure that you're inside of the right component, register passenger component. And now we for sure need to get our new service that we have created from the client API, which is the passenger service, right? You can still see that below here. That one got created, passenger service. So we take that here and then we create a new method, which is register, and that register method will get called from the form button. So in the end, what will happen is you get the form, you click on login, that one will then call the register function inside of the service finally, which will then talk to the REST API, so ASP. Great. Now, first of all, we import the new service here. Import passenger service from, there we go, API/services/passenger.service. Now we have that service inside of our registration component here. And if we want to use it, we have to take it inside of the constructor. So private passenger service. You can see a pattern, right? We always are doing the same stuff if we want to use a service, etc. So we always have to update the client app, then check if we have created a new service, and if we want to use that service, import it, take it inside of the constructor for dependency injection, and then we can make use of it. Now let's create a new method, which is register, and that method is simply going ahead and taking this passenger service and calling register passenger. You can see the parameter new passenger DTO, right? So everything seems to be configured correctly. Now go to the HTML again, and here in the button where we have that submit, we simply register a click event. So go ahead and do that. Click equals to register, and then we don't pass in any other information. So this here is for sure this method. Now, we need for sure some more information, because when we simply go ahead and call register, then we don't have any information yet passed from what we have inside that form, because here we have the email, first name, last name, but we are not using it in any way. So once we click the register button or login button, the method will get called, but we for sure need some more information. So one neat way to do that is now to really make use of these input fields that we have here. And if we want to use it, we have to use the form tag. So now let's add the form tag. And if you have copied it from the GitHub page, you might already have it. So go ahead and pay attention here. If you already have the form tag, you for sure don't have to add it again. Now I just collapse that, copy it, and paste everything inside that form tag. Let's save it here. Now by using a form tag like this, we can go ahead and access the input fields or the values. So this is just the beginning, but we leave it like this for now. If we now want to use the information of the form, we have to use a reactive forms module. So now go to your app.module.ts right here. You can see the forms module, right? And we now make use of the reactive forms module. So add it here in the import statement, then scroll down. Here in the imports, you can see forms module, add the reactive forms module. So this is sort of preparing everything for dependency injection. So now we can use reactive forms inside of our Angular project. So now switch back to our TypeScript component, register passenger TypeScript. right? Exactly there where we have that register method. And now again, import form builder from Angular core. Can copy it from here, from Angular core. There we go. So this is form builder. Add Angular/forms. So we now have access to the form builder. Take it inside of the constructor again, just as always. So simply private FB, for example, form builder. Let me just line that in. Great. So we have passenger service and form builder. And now we can for sure use that form builder to access the values of the form. And inside there we can find email address, first name, last name, and gender, right? So now the important part takes place. We for sure need any kind of data binding again. So we use that form builder to create a completely match of the information we want to have here, or we have here, depending on email, for example, first name, last name, etc. So we now use that form builder to create a form. Keep in mind, I will now do that. I will add it here at the very top. We call this form. Okay, so later on we can use that name here, that property, to connect it in HTML. This is very important. So this dot form builder dot group. So we create a new form group. However, what that means is we simply create a form, just like a form, email, and the default value is null or just empty, right? Sort of like this. First name, same, since this is also a string, we do it exactly the same way. Also for last name, there we go, last name, and for is female. This is how it's named inside of the form, and here the value, default value, is true. You can for sure switch it if you like. This is the match of how our form looks inside of the HTML, right? You can see that here, email, first name, last name, etc. Just based on the information. For sure, we haven't bounded yet. We didn't use form, email, or first name, right? You can see if we take a look at email here, there is nothing which is telling, okay, it's email, right? We only have a placeholder and some text here, and this is also just a label. So we need to define or bind this so that this input field knows, okay, I meant for email, right? Because the placeholder isn't changing anything. We can, for example, entirely remove it. So the input field doesn't know, okay, I'm an email input field, and the placeholder doesn't change that. So we need to add some binding here. Let's switch back to the TypeScript component. As I said, this property is called form, and now we will use it. Switch back to HTML, and as I said, keep in mind this name is form, and inside of the form tag here, go ahead and add form group, right? And set the value to form. And this line of code or statement here, form group equals to form, will set it to this group, and the name of it is form, right? So we assign a form group with the name form, this property. So you can see it's type of form group, right? You can see that right here. So now this form is actually attached to this group here. Now that's not enough. We also have to combine all the single fields here. That's not a lot of work once we have done it. For this, we go inside of the input field here, form control name equals to email, and now we bind it. Form control name, this is a very important attribute. Form control name email will bind it to this, to our form control group we are inside because we've connected it, and then email. And now this input field is bound to that information here, email. So we copy that form control name, and for sure we now scroll down. In the first name we set it to first name. Definitely make sure that you don't add any typos here. So first name should be exactly written like here. Now we'd have to do that for last name too. Last name, and here also for is female. And in the second one below, we also have that is female. So now we have everything completely bound. So let's switch back to our TypeScript component, and register will get called once we have actually pressed the button. So let's log console.log the information of our form. So form values, for example, is equals to this.form.value. So since we have bounded, so once we fill out the HTML form, we will have that information right here inside that form property. And once we click register, we will log the information about this property. So all of the input here. Now let's save it and start our application. I started the application and visited register passenger. Now, first of all, if we have female and male here, you can see we are now able to switch, right? Because it's bound. So let me enter some fake values. Let me open the console, Ctrl-Shift-J if you are on Chrome browser. Now let me clear the console because that error here is just coming from our favicon missing. And now let's click on login. You can see the entry here, form values. You can see email, first name is female and last name. So all of the information. What does that mean? We are able to log it here. So we have the information inside of our register. So we can now go ahead and call that service here to actually really call the backend part, and we can provide the information from the form. So we can now use the form and build the DTO, right, the new passenger DTO, and send it right into the service and send it right to our backend endpoint. So we should make a break here, and in the next video we will continue here sending the information, and then you have achieved something really important. You have completely set up a new endpoint, set up a form, bound the complete form, and then send it back to the API controller. And that's something you really have to use a lot of times when you work as a web developer for sure.